And welcome back to Rural America Live. That is with Raven Industries and Case IH Precision Technology. Well, tonight we're talking about the ag industry's first autonomous spreader. Now, these two companies joined forces to create this incredible piece of equipment, and they're ready to answer your questions about it. Give us a call this evening at 877-731-6733. And with that, it was unveiled at the Farm Progress Show, as we mentioned just moments ago. Chris, if you would talk a little bit about the unveiling and the innovative idea rolled out to the industry there.
Yeah, for sure. So what I'll lead with first is that Ben and I had the opportunity to be the ones that launched the autonomous Trident at Farm Progress. The neatest thing about the launch for me anyways was the fact that it was a live demo. It wasn't B-roll on a TV. It wasn't just us talking heads talking about it. You could literally see it run. So a couple things. The Trident itself is a production 5550 Trident that we've bolted, Raven Tech on. Again, this is the efforts of several 8-ish months of development between our two companies, and we use the Farm Progress platform to, unveil our direction in the market moving forward as kind of now being one.
And Ben, tell us a little bit about from your perspective in that.
Well, the reaction was amazing. The crowds that came to see the demos was outstanding. We had a lot of people that wanted to see how this machine was running without anyone in the cab. That was shocking to a lot of people to see that happening live. As Chris said, this wasn't a staged event. It was real. The technology is working right in front of them. We had not only producers that were at the show, but we had a lot of dealers. We had a lot of ag retailers, a lot of people from the industry that were really keen to understand autonomy. Alongside this, we had demos of all of our other Raven technology and multiple other Case IH products, so they got to see how this is all sort of evolving very quickly. And as Chris said, Raven has only been for a few months part of the Case CNH industrial family, and that gave us really awesome momentum to show how we've collaborated so quickly.
It is pretty impressive turnaround, I do have to say. Now, Chris, tell me more about the spreader. What additional benefits does this bring to the farmer?
Yeah, so I would start with flexibility. So unlike some of the things that we've talked about in the past, the cab is obviously still on the spreader. So understanding where our customer base is and their journey and their willingness to adopt, accept, confidence in autonomy, we wanted to make sure that we started with a solution that allowed an operator to still be present. So while you can certainly take an operator out of the cab in that supervised autonomy situation we mentioned, you can also leave someone in the cab. In addition to that, you can leave someone in the cab of one machine and have them supervising or controlling a second machine in the field. So the flexibility that this offers to a large grower, ag retailer from an efficiency perspective, I think is where I would start the conversation at.
All right. Well, the conversation right here is continuing on, and the phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. What questions do you have for our guest here this evening? The number to call, 877-731-6733. That's 877-731-6733. We'll take your call and let the gentleman visit with you a little bit more about this autonomous technology coming to a field near you down the road. Now, Ben, certainly great information that we're covering here, but can you kind of take us through what a typical job might be, maybe from the setup to the execution? How does it work?
Yeah, it's actually really based on a lot of the core technology Raven has been offering in sprayers. Mm-hmm. So there is a experience that the operator has in the cab that is also mirrored in a mobile device and software solutions. So we have a tech stack that controls the machine, as we've talked about. When you want to deploy that machine into any operation, we call it like a mission. And so we have to plan right from beginning to end how you're going to unveil that machine's mission. It includes establishing where the field is, its location, trying to create a boundary for that machine. So you're mapping out the perimeter of the field and all the obstacles that are in that field. And then finally ending up with hitting go and letting the machine run through the operation. So that's the high level. There's a lot of details in there.
A lot of details from A to Z between. As far as putting the technology to use, I know that another big question that folks have got to have as far as the safety involved. Is it safe to use? I picture in my mind one of the vacuums that you can set in your house and turn it loose and then it gets stuck underneath the chair. Not necessarily a concern out in the field, but you know, there are other challenges out there.
Yeah, so safety is a huge top priority for any kind of autonomy development program. So it's the first thing people think about is if there's nobody in the cab, how do we know that it's not going to run over something? And there's a lot of tools and equipment that goes into the machine to sense and make sure it's safe. Some of the diagrams that were shown show the different building blocks that go into the autonomy kit. But safety is paramount. And so for today, the way all of our autonomous missions are operated is that they are still supervised. Mm-hmm. So there's still human involvement to provide some backup for when the systems encounter something they haven't seen yet.
No chair hazards, so that's
right.
Good.
Yeah.
Can you set the stage for us and kind of tell us how it works?
So the first piece I'd like to talk about is really you've got the control system that operates the machine interfacing with a lot of sensors. So the sensors include cameras and radar, which we call our perception system. That's what will detect all the objects that might need to be avoided. We have something called a ground control station, which is what we can see on the screen right now. This is a software that runs on the machine's computers that are installed that take the boundary and then simulates all of the paths that the machine has to operate on. Once that simulation is complete, the machine follows all of those paths through the field, which includes ensuring that it doesn't travel through any of the objects that you want to avoid. So if you have a wet spot or a power line or a tree line, it knows where those are and it plans the mission completely around that. So it is very, very interesting how we've been able to pull together all this and make it into a fairly easy user experience. But it does take some training, and a lot of the customers that have been using this now will admit that this is a pretty big change for them in terms of the management of their farm.
Got a learning curve up front, but once you get everything kind of in line, it sort of definitely eases the road forward.
That's right. There's a lot of actually benefits to embracing autonomy beyond autonomy.
Right.
A lot of people want to use precision farming solutions to just improve the efficiency of their farm overall.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to continue this conversation. The phone number to call is 877-731-6733. And with that, we have a caller on the line. We have Nicole from Colorado on the line with us. Nicole, go ahead with your question.
Sure. Thanks for taking the call. What role do you see autonomy really playing in farming long term? What's your perspective of that? Do you think it'll be on every operation?
Who wants to tackle that one?
I'll tackle it first.
Okay.
There's certainly opportunity for autonomy in multiple applications and in every different cropping practice. I think it goes back to some of what Ben and I have talked about earlier, which is confidence. The industry right now is in a progression or a maturity where there are areas where autonomy makes sense to insert in various ways, the Trident being one of them. And there are applications where sensing and perception technology is going to need to come along a little bit further in terms of maturity and capabilities before we put autonomy into certain applications. Planting would be a good example of a scenario where a customer is not maybe quite as confident as what they would be to run a spreader, as an example. So I think, again, it goes back to where the industry's at, where our customer base is at, and where we can confidently insert these technologies into their operations in a way that doesn't rob them of efficiency. It actually contributes to their operations. And
speaking of customers, I understand that you guys had some key customers who kind of went through the test in the development of the autonomy. I'm saying the word too many times.
Yeah, no worries.
But give me kind of an idea. What did your customers have to say?
Well, yeah, one of the customers that we're really excited got to test this technology out was Brady Fallman. He farms in Holdfast, Saskatchewan. It's about a 10,000 acre farmer. And just like a lot of ambitious young farmers, he's expanding, and he's going to grow to about 13,000 acres next year. He wants to do that with the same workforce, same equipment base. So he literally has to push everything about 30% more. Well, he got very interested in autonomy. He contacted us, not realizing we had the Trident under development. He got his hands on the Trident, and we saw some huge results out of his operation. And as he says, when we've heard from him at the Farm Progress Show, because he came down and talked to the rest of the customers about his experience. Ultimately, it was a huge eye-opener for him in terms of how technology is going to change the way he does farming overall. So even to the question we just heard, yes, the Trident was an exciting piece of equipment for him, but now he gets to see how technology is going to unfold across his whole farm, and maybe some of that becomes autonomous and maybe some of it doesn't, but he's going to be more productive overall.
Well, and I imagine also once you go through the setup with the initial step into the autonomous world, it makes the next step just a little bit easier down the road.
That's right.
With that, we do have the feedback that he offered for them at the Farm Progress Show. Our own Mark Oppold, again, was at the Farm Progress Show this year and spoke with them.
What's the main difference or that you notice in testing it this summer?
For us, it'll be the efficiency of autonomy. That's what we're the most excited about. Getting guys out of the cabs and able to multitask, even if we're doing operations in the same field, like picking rocks or working like anything like that. That's the most exciting part of what we're looking for.
You said really, Mark, it was flawless. A few hiccups early on, you might expect that, but beyond that, pretty easy.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It does take some time to get used to it, obviously, but within 2,000 acres, I felt we're starting to get pretty confident going into fall.
And when you talk about 10,000 acres, this is a real game changer for, doesn't matter if U.S. or Canadian producer, it's a game changer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anywhere where we can add efficiencies as farmers, I think anybody will tell you they want to keep getting better and improve, so it's going to be a huge change for us, for sure.
How many people do you have right now, labor-wise, for 10,000 acres?
We have 2 full-time guys, and then Dad and I, and we had 2 operators during seeding and harvest during the busy times.
You could expand without adding anyone.
Yeah, and then also the last full-time guy we hired has a background in precision ag and technology, so that's a really big change for us. We can really take all the data that we've been getting over the last however many years as farmers, and it'll make the adoption of autonomy much smoother for us.
Exactly right. And as far as rate, you can change the rate remotely here as well if you want to go heavier or lighter for application?
Yeah, we were doing standard rates. We had loaded a VR map into ours actually, so it was changing as it was doing it, but I believe anything on the Viper 4 we can change remotely.
Well, certainly a great testimonial there. I'm sure that you guys were excited to hear his feedback when you were on location at the Farm Progress Show.
Absolutely.
Were you surprised by anything that he had to share with you that you hadn't thought of yet?
Well, I think the authenticity of his answers was actually really kind of surprising. I think when you put a customer in front of a group like that, you're not sure what they're going to say, and for him to be so honest about the fact that it was an early look at this technology and that there were a few hiccups, but at the same time he actually got some benefit out of it. That was really, I felt pretty good about that at the
Especially when that benefit kicks in so quick, because he hasn't, been using it for a couple of years. It's been a very short time.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Well, with that, the phone lines, again, they are open. Give us a holler, 877-731-6733. Our guests are here and ready to answer your questions. With that, we have Chris from Virginia on the line with us. Chris, go ahead with your question.
My question tonight was, what size field does it take to justify this machine going into? I mean, how many acres if you're spreading fertilizer?
I can take the first swing at that. Okay. Chris, I don't know that there's an acre number I would put on it. What I would say is, across all of our region, the United States specifically, there are certainly irregular shaped fields, small fields, large fields. Depending on the shape more than anything and the efficiency opportunities, you have in large fields. Those certainly offer the most immediate value, but I wouldn't put an acreage number on it and say, anything under 20 acres or something like that. The solution isn't applicable. It really is about the size of the field, the operation it's being used in. And again, going back to the flexibility comment, you may have a 500-acre field and then you need to spread a 20-acre field, right? You can get in the cab, drive it down the road from your 20-acre field that you've maybe spread with someone in the cab, and then take somebody out of the cab when you hit, a section down the road as an example.
Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I can say we have a lot of customers with small fields, and they're doing autonomy today. So there's no question that size is different everywhere. And we've been working in all of those settings to try to ensure that our technology can work.
And make sure the size fits the right operation and make it work across the board. Well, again, the phone lines are open, 877-731-6733. Give us a call with your question for our guest here this evening. And now, Ben, we heard the testimonial that he had there just a moment ago, but moving on beyond that, in thinking about it, do you see that the solution, or this is the solution, making a difference in how growers approach autonomy?
Yeah, for Raven and Case IH, when we work together with customers, autonomy is more than just the single solution that we saw with Brady using the Trident. As I've talked about, the fact that they are seeing how this technology is going to transform their farming operation is really where we see the eyes light up. A lot of people have heard about connectivity. They've heard about data management. They've heard about how to map their fields properly, how to use precision guidance. That's all the building blocks in autonomy. And they can use that in most of their farm equipment today. And that's how they, as we like to call it, path to autonomy. That's how they learn all these steps, how they embrace all these different new technologies. And that's how we're going to see a big difference. It's going to increase how many acres they can farm or reduce the amount of labor they need.
Now, I imagine that a lot of folks across rural America have got to be thinking about, I don't really have that great of internet service. What about broadband connectivity? How necessary is it whenever we're talking about this kind of equipment? Or is it powerful enough that it is its own basic tower?
Well, Chris can comment on this too. We both have lots to say about connectivity because it's a big part of all these solutions. I mean, for a wide variety of reasons, you need to have connectivity to be able to run autonomy. It is the reason you can connect to that machine remotely when no one's in there. There is obviously localized communications that you can install that can help with some of that supervised autonomy, but the machines will run for a limited period without connection. But for safety reasons, we do need connectivity, and so it's a fundamental need. I know all producers and stakeholders in rural America, rural world, believe that it's time for better broadband connectivity everywhere.
We know they're working on it, but we know they're not there. And there's still a lot of room to grow. Chris, do you want to follow up on that any?
Yeah, from a Case IH perspective, we've put a heavy emphasis on our, I'll say, connected solutions, certainly in the last 5 years or so. And this is one of the reasons why. As Ben mentioned, we're in a situation right now where there's building blocks that need to come together to recognize the value of these solutions long term. Connectivity plays a large part in that. So if we look at what we've done on our cash crop platform, specifically putting connectivity in as we build these machines from the factory, it's not just the face value what's here today with the AFS Connect and the Slingshot platforms, but it's making sure that we have the foundational tech in place when we get to the point of recognizing large scale adoption of these technologies, that the park of equipment, if you will, is capable of utilizing it.
That also leads us up to, of course, the other big question when you're talking about broadband and connectivity is security. A lot of folks, data breaches taking place across the globe in recent years. How is our information most protected here?
Well, we take it as a very high priority to make sure that security is embedded in everything that we produce. So we work very hard to reassure all of our customers that their data is protected and that machines are protected. So it's a fundamental thing as much as safety is. I would say that over the next several years, as technology keeps getting more and more complex and more connected, it's just going to have to be like a component into everything. We're not going to get away from it at all.
I would totally agree with that. Chris, anything you want to add there?
No, I would just reinforce the data privacy element of things and what the way that we handle customers' data and the stance that we take that, our customers do, own their data. We certainly, partner with them and use elements of it for ongoing development to create more valuable products for them. But just to bolster what Ben said, we still maintain a strong, data privacy and customer ownership of data stance.
Certainly front and center stage in importance these days. Well, we're going to continue our conversation. The phone lines are open, so call in with your questions. We want to hear from you. That number to call, 877-731-6733. While the industry's first autonomous spreader is an incredible feat, it's built on years of continuously advancing technology. Now, when we come back, we'll hear more about the history of innovation within both Raven and Case IH and how those groundbreaking technologies all came together to bring us here this evening.